Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Students, can you all clearly hear me? So, can you all hear me clearly? Please say a yes in the chat box if you can clearly hear me. Good. So, it seems there is no echo. The sound is clear. Alhamdulillah. So, students, all of you, please pay attention. Let us start our lecture. In the last class, we have discussed, a few basics, some fundamentals of cryptography. All right. So, students, please pay attention. Let me just increase the resolution so you can see the board better. Yes, it is fine. Students, can you clearly see what is written on the board? Let me give you a trick. Everyone, please pay attention. I will now share my screen with you and show you the process of how to make it big. So what I will do is I will share my screen. Everyone, please pay attention and see carefully. This is my computer screen that you are seeing here, right? So if you see your screen like this, right? If you see that what I am presenting is very small, carefully see. If my window is very small, and you can see other names and other people here also, if you want to make it big, you will take the mouse cursor to my presentation screen, to my camera, and you will see this button. The button says pin to screen. When you will click this button, the screen will become bigger. So all of you make sure that you have pinned my screen, the screen which, the camera which is showing the board. All of you pin this screen by clicking this button so that you can see a bigger window. So I will now stop sharing. Yes, so I hope you have all done it. Okay. So students, in the last class, we have studied, some basic terms. We said we have a sender and we have a receiver. The sender and receiver, they want to communicate with each other securely. So what the sender does, the sender takes the plain text, he converts this plain text into ciphertext with the help of encryption. And then the sender sends this ciphertext to the receiver. So the ciphertext goes to the receiver. And what does the receiver do? The receiver converts this ciphertext back into the plain text with the help of the process called decryption. So this is how sender and receiver communicate with each other securely. Students, we have discussed that all those who practice cryptography, who design cryptographic ciphers, who use cryptographic ciphers to secure their data transmission, such people are called cryptographers. So the people who practice cryptography are called cryptographers. Okay, so cryptographer is a person who designs cryptographic algorithm, who uses cryptographic algorithm, and who practices cryptography. Now, students, please pay attention. We have discussed about another entity in our last class, and that entity is key. The attacker. Okay, since you can't see the attacker. Okay, so please pay attention, student. This attacker What this attacker tries to do, when this ciphertext is being transmitted from the sender to the receiver, the attacker gets this ciphertext, right? The ciphertext is unreadable. The attacker will not be able to read or understand the ciphertext. But once he will see that this is unreadable, he will know that this is the ciphertext. It is an encrypted message. So what the attacker will try to do, the attacker will try to use some method or some technique to break this ciphertext. The attacker will try to break the ciphertext back into the plain text. Why am I using this word break? Because attacker is not an authorized person. These two people are authorized entities. They are communicating with each other. So they know which cryptographic algorithm they are using. They know the key. What is the concept of key in a cryptographic algorithm? This we are going to learn very, very soon. But remember that whenever we encrypt some data, whenever we generate ciphertext, it involves two things: a cryptographic algorithm plus a key. This attacker student has no idea about which cryptographic algorithm is being used and what key is being used. That algorithm and key is used, it is known only to the sender and the receiver. So what the attacker does, he steals the ciphertext from over the communication channel, and then he will use different tricks, different methods, different scientific techniques to break this ciphertext and get the plain text. Maybe he is successful or maybe he is unsuccessful. So this is what an attacker do. And student, this process of breaking the ciphertext, the process of breaking the ciphertext without the knowledge of the algorithm and without the knowledge of the cryptographic key which is used to encrypt the data, this process of breaking the ciphertext is called cryptanalysis. And the people or the person who practice cryptanalysis, these people or this person is called a cryptanalyst. So once again, who is a cryptographer? A cryptographer is a person who designs different cryptographic algorithms, who practices or uses different cryptographic algorithms, and who tries to secure the data transmission. On the other hand, who is a cryptanalyst? A cryptanalyst is, for now, an attacker, a person who steals some ciphertext from the communication channel, and he tries to convert this ciphertext or break this ciphertext into the plain text. Why are we using the term break the ciphertext? Because he is not the authorized person. He does not have the right to get the plain text. He is basically an attacker. He is basically a bad guy. So he gets the ciphertext, and using different scientific methods and techniques, he tries to break this ciphertext back into the plain text. And this process of breaking a ciphertext back from ciphertext to plain text, this process is called cryptanalysis. And the person who performs this process is called a cryptanalyst. Now, please pay close attention, student. There are two types of people who perform cryptanalysis. One are the attackers. Of course, the attackers steal our ciphertext. They try to break our ciphertext, and they try to get the plain text. Right? They are interested in our data. But not only the bad people, do perform cryptanalysis. Good people, the scientists, they also perform cryptanalysis. So please pay attention. Cryptanalysis is not only performed by the attacker, it is a science which is studied and which is practiced by good people also. For example, I am a cryptanalyst. I have taken courses on cryptanalysis, right? So I have tried to cryptanalyze some algorithm. The big question is, like cryptography, cryptanalysis is a complete subject. It's a very hard subject and it exists. So students, what is the purpose of this subject, cryptanalysis? If we study cryptanalysis, basically we learn different methods, different techniques of breaking the ciphertext without knowing the algorithm and without knowing the key. So this cryptanalysts, these scientists, what they do, they gather the knowledge and skills and they practice those skills to break different, cryptographic algorithm. The big question is, Why would a person want to learn how to break cryptographic algorithms? Why would a person want to learn? For example, would you like to become a crypt analyst? Why would a good man want to learn how to break different cryptographic algorithms? So the answer to this question is that crypt analysts, they basically help us in testing our cryptographic algorithms. They help us in testing cryptographic ciphers or cryptographic algorithms. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a cryptographer. Let us say I am a cryptographer and I come up with an algorithm. I design a new cryptographic algorithm, and the name of my algorithm is Tariq's cipher. So this is my algorithm, a cryptographic algorithm which is designed by me. Now, I publish this algorithm over the internet. I want the whole world to use my algorithm, but people don't trust my algorithm. They don't know whether this is secure or not. So what I will do is I will actually share my, new algorithm, my new cryptographic cipher with cryptanalysts, and I will ask them to test the security of this cipher. So what I will do is, using my algorithm, I will generate a lot of ciphertexts, and I will give these ciphertexts to the cryptanalyst. And the cryptanalyst will try to break this ciphertext into the plain text. If any cryptanalyst is able to convert my ciphertext back into the plain text, it means my algorithm is not good. It has weaknesses. But if all the cryptanalysts approve that, yes, this looks like a very good algorithm, we are not able to break this algorithm, we are not able to find any weakness in this algorithm, it means that my cryptographic algorithm is actually good and suitable to be used. Then the world will trust my algorithm and people will be able to use my algorithm. So do you understand, students, who are cryptanalysts and what they, what they do? Do you understand what is cryptanalysis? If you understand this, press or write yes in the chat box. Okay, so we have Moza, and Moza has not understood. Everyone else seems to have understood this. So once again, I will repeat. Cryptography, students, is a science. It is a subject in which we learn how to secure our messages, how to design different cryptographic algorithms, how to secure our message passing. Cryptanalysis is a subject in which we learn how to break the security of our messages. In cryptanalysis, we learn that if we get a ciphertext, how can we break this ciphertext and get the original plain text back without the knowledge of the algorithm and without the knowledge of the key. So cryptanalysis is an art and science of breaking the ciphertext. Cryptography is the science of making our messages secure, and cryptanalysis is the reverse of this. It is a science of breaking our ciphertext. How do we do this? Like we have cryptographic algorithm, we have many techniques of, many methods, many principles of designing a cryptographic algorithm. In cryptanalysis, students, we study different methods, techniques, scientific approaches of breaking ciphertext. In this course, we will talk about some of those methods also, but this is basically not the purpose of this course, but we'll still touch this topic. All right, so where is that student? Moza, do you understand what is cryptanalysis? Or if you have any question, turn on the mic. Okay, so Moza has understood this. So now, student, we know about two types of people. One are cryptographer who practice cryptography. They want to secure messages. And we have cryptanalysts who want to break the security of messages, right? So they try to get encrypted messages and they try to break them. So there are two types of cryptanalysts. One are good people who are scientists. These scientists help us in testing the security of our cryptographic algorithms. But there are bad people called attackers. Attackers also perform cryptanalysis. I hope this is clear to you. Now, student, these two subjects of cryptography and cryptanalysis, they are actually a part of a parent subject called cryptology. So remember, cryptology is the parent subject. It is the parent domain, right? It includes both cryptography and cryptanalysis. So if there is a person who has the knowledge and skills to practice cryptography, and he also has the knowledge and skills to practice cryptanalysis, we call such a person a cryptologist. So the person who practices cryptology is called a
سكت ما بسمعك هنا.
cryptologist. So yes, student, I can hear someone talking. Do you have a question? Is anyone having a question? All right, it seems no question. So please pay attention. You can master both of these skills. You can become a cryptographer. Then you will learn how to design different cryptographic algorithms, how to test different cryptographic algorithms, how to use different cryptographic algorithms. You can become a cryptanalyst. In here, you will learn how to break the security of messages. You will learn how to find weaknesses in cryptographic algorithms, how to break different cryptographic ciphers. And if you, I mean, you are a specialist of both these domains, you are basically a cryptologist. Right? A cryptologist is a person who practices both cryptography and cryptanalysis. And this is the parent domain, cryptology, which includes both cryptography and cryptanalysis. If it is clear to all of you, we'll move on. If you have any question, please ask. So, is it clear to all of you? Any question from anyone? Okay, so it seems it is clear to you. So what I will show you now is this. I will share my screen with you. Just wait a second. Okay, so I hope all of you can share you can see my screen. So we have just studied what is cryptanalysis. We said cryptanalysis is an art and science of breaking ciphertext. What do we mean by breaking ciphertext? We mean without the knowledge of the algorithm, without the knowledge of the key, we get a ciphertext and we try to break that ciphertext and get the plain text. We may not be successful, but if we are trying to do that, we are called cryptanalyst. So what do we mean by breaking ciphertext? Breaking ciphertext means seeing through the disguise. The word disguise means to hide something, something hidden, right? So, you know, what is ciphertext? Ciphertext is, there is a message hidden inside this. What is cryptanalysis? Cryptanalysis is the science in which we study how to break the security of ciphertext and how to get the plain text back. It is a very hard subject. Most of the time, cryptanalysts, if the algorithm is good, they fail. Anyway, so the people who practice cryptanalysis, these people are called cryptanalysts. And then we said cryptology is the parent domain. It's the parent domain of, it's a branch of mathematics which includes both cryptography and cryptanalysis. So if you're a person who practices both cryptography as well as cryptanalysis, then you will be called a cryptologist. Is it clear? So I will stop sharing the screen and we will go back to our board. Last idea, not understand. So is there anyone in this class who can explain again what is cryptanalysis and what is cryptology, or who is a cryptanalyst and who is a cryptologist? I want some of you to unmute your mic and explain what I have explained here. What is cryptanalysis and what is cryptology? Remember, student, when you will participate in this class, you get marks for that, right? And when you don't participate in this class, then you face trouble in marks. But you should not participate just for marks. Please ensure that you understand. This is a complicated course. You will see as we will progress through our lectures, all these things that we'll keep on discussing, they will all, start clubbing with each other. So what I'm saying is that if you want to understand this course properly, and if you want to get a high grade in this course, it's important that you interact. Try to answer all the questions that I will ask. No problem, give all the wrong answers, but try to answer, right? So it's vital, right? So anyone, for example, is anyone interested in telling us what is cryptanalysis? So maybe we can talk to Amani. Amani, can you enable your microphone? So Amani, enable your microphone. Yeah, when I say that, you have to do it fast. So it looks like Amani is very shy. So maybe we will find a less shy person. Like, no boy in this class? Okay, we have Zad. I hope this is the same Zad, my advisee. So Zad, can you unmute your mic? Zad, unmute your mic, please. Let's talk. Zad Saeed Ali Al-Rashidi, unmute your mic. Zad Al-Rashidi, no problem. I will take note of all these students who are not enabling mic, and I will make sure that I reduce the marks of all such students who will not participate. No problem. It's okay, students. So yeah, the question is, I just want someone to explain what is cryptanalysis. So Moza Suleiman Al-Tubi, would you like to try? Can you enable your microphone, Moza? What is cryptanalysis?
Breaking the ciphertext.
Okay, it is an art or science of breaking the ciphertext. So Moza, my question is, who performs cryptanalysis and why do they perform cryptanalysis? Keep your microphone enabled. Yes, Moza Al-Tubi. Cryptanalysis is performed by whom? And what is the purpose of cryptanalysis?
Teacher, breaking the ciphertext type or?
No. I told you that cryptanalysis is performed by two people. One, it is performed by attackers. Second, cryptanalysis is performed by the scientist, the cryptanalyst, right? Why do attackers perform cryptanalysis? Attackers perform cryptanalysis because they are interested in our data. They will, see the bank transaction, they will try to break them, and then they can do a lot of bad things if they're able to break our communication. But I have told you that we also have scientists called cryptanalysts. They also break the security of ciphertext. So there are two types of people who perform cryptanalysis. One are the attackers. These are the bad guys. Of course, they want our data. They want to do bad things with our data. So we understand this. But then I told you that cryptanalysis is also performed by the scientist, by the cryptanalyst, who learn and who use these techniques to test the security of our cryptographic algorithms. So whenever a new cryptographic algorithm is designed by someone, he will get it tested by different cryptanalysts before the world accepts their cryptographic algorithm to be secure. Anyway, so the participation in this class is very bad, I see. So it means the learning of this class will not be very good. Please understand, all of you, that if you want to make this learning experience beneficial for you, and you want to achieve some high grades, you want to really understand this course very well, this will only happen if you will interact. Already it's very disturbing for me because I can't see any student, I can't talk to anyone. So when I say enable the microphone, this is the class where I am excusing you. But in the next class, when I invite someone, when I say that you enable your microphone, and you don't enable your microphone, first you will lose marks, and if you will continue to do the same in upcoming lectures, you will be thrown out of this lecture, right? In that case, because it is important that you interact, you participate, you will see that the things are, I mean, if you will interact, you will participate, you will understand everything, things will remain easy. Otherwise, this the course will become very complicated for you. So in order to check whether you are understanding everything correctly, it's important for me to interact with you. So from the next class, when I pick someone and ask them you to enable your mic, you immediately do that. In the last class also, some students were telling me that our microphone is not working. Please make sure that you get your microphones fixed before you join the next class. So this is critically important. Yes, again, some students are saying the same. If you have a problem with the microphone, please get the microphone fixed, right? If the laptop microphone is not working, please buy simple headphones, the headphones that you get with your mobile phone. Buy simple headphones, USB type from the market. You can get them for 1-2 Riyal only, right? They have a built-in microphone also. So next time from the next class, please have your microphones ready. They should be working. Okay, so we'll leave this topic and we'll now move on to our next topic, which is a very important topic. And the topic is goals of cryptography. So students, okay, so many students telling that there is a problem with their microphone. Please make sure that you get these problem fixed before you join the next class. Mr. Problem in the website. What does this mean, Jasim? What is the problem in which website? You have a problem in Moodle? Yeah, Jasim, can you explain the problem you're having? Are all of you clearly able to read what is written on the board? Is the board clear to you and are you able to hear me? Okay, good. So I can't see the board clear. Al-Ghalia, most of the students are able to clearly see the board. If you are unable to see the board, there are two reasons. There can be only two reasons. Number one, you have not pinned the screen like this, like I have explained in the beginning of this course. You go to my camera window. In my camera window, you will see two buttons. On the left side, you will see a button called pin, right? So you click that pin button and the screen will become big in front of you. If you have pinned my screen and still the board is not clear, it means your internet connection is not good. So since all the courses in this semester will be completely online, students, you need to make sure that you have a very good internet connection. Without a good internet connection, this semester will be a big trouble for you. All of you invest in a good internet connection, please. All right, so we'll start our discussion about goals of cryptography. Okay, so students, cryptography helps us in achieving different goals of information security. The first goal we are going to learn and understand is called confidentiality. Student, the word confidentiality comes from the word confidential. The word confidential means something secret, something secure. So carefully see. Okay, let me first give you some example. And even before that example, there are two terms that you need to understand if you don't already. One is authorized, and other is unauthorized. Do you know the meaning or the difference between these two terms? Okay, so let me tell you that. Please pay attention, student. This is my mobile phone, right? This mobile phone contains a lot of important data. So it contains a lot of important sensitive data that belongs to me. See, I have the right. I'm the only one in the world who has the legal right to access this data. Right? So someone who has the legal right, someone who has the permission to access some data, we say he is an authorized person. So this is my mobile phone. The data in this mobile phone belongs to me. So what I will say is, I will say that I am authorized to access the content. I am authorized to access the data in this mobile phone. And you don't have the permission, or you don't have the legal right to access this data. So I will say that you are not authorized, or you are unauthorized to access this data in this mobile phone. Is that clear, student? So the two terms, authorized and unauthorized, understand the difference. I have been given a college computer. I have been given a computer by the college. This computer can be used only by me. The college has given me an email address also. That email address should only be, no one else should be able to check my email. They do not have the right. Only I am authorized to check my emails, which come in my inbox. So students, an authorized entity or an authorized person is someone who has the permission or who has the legal right to access some data. And an unauthorized person is someone who does not have the legal right to access something. Is it clear to all of you? If you understand these two terms, please write yes in the chat box. Okay, if you understand this, good. I will further elaborate this, that for example, we have this sender and we have this receiver. Let us say the sender is a bank client and the receiver is the Bank Muscat server. And there is the sender. What the sender does? The sender is, he performs an online transaction. He says, transfer 100 Omani Riyals from my account to someone else's account. Now student, this client is performing this transaction. This is the Bank Muscat server. This is the client who is having the Bank Muscat application installed. He is performing this online transaction. Who are the authorized entities in this, communication? The client and the server, both are authorized entities. The client, since he has generated this data, he has the right to know this data. He has the right to see this data, right? And the server, since he is the server is the one who is going to perform this transaction, the server has the right to know or see or access the data, right? So in this diagram, both the client and server, they are the only entities who are authorized to access or see this data. On the other hand, we have an attacker here. So this attacker, students, is an unauthorized person because he does not have the legal right to access this data or this transmission. Do you understand this? Is it clear to all of you? So an unauthorized person who does not have the legal right to access some data, and the people who have the legal right to access some data, they are called authorized people or authorized entities. Now carefully see, students, what we are going to understand is confidentiality. Confidentiality is a principle of security which states that only the authorized people, confidentiality is a principle of security which requires that only the authorized entities should access, see, or understand the data. So what is confidentiality? Confidentiality is a principle of security which states that only the authorized people, I mean these two are the authorized entities, only the authorized entities should be able to access or see or understand or read the data. So confidentiality is a principle of security which states that only the authorized entities should be able to see or understand or access or read the data. In other words, in this example, only the client and the server has the right to be able to see or to understand or to access or to read this data. The unauthorized attacker and all the other unauthorized people, they should not be able to read or access this data. This is confidentiality. Carefully listen, students. Please pay attention. This is a communication system, right? It starts from here, it ends here. This is a communication system, right? And in this communication system, we want to achieve confidentiality. We want to ensure that only the authorized people should be able to see or access or read or understand the data on this communication channel, right? So if we want to ensure this, in other words, we want to ensure that an unauthorized person, an attacker, if he wants to read or access this data, he should not be able to read this. What can we do? Listen to the question carefully. What can we do to make sure that this data is read or understood only by the authorized entities? An unauthorized person should not be able to read or understand this data. So how can we secure this data? Any ideas? Let me elaborate my question further. Listen to the question very, very carefully. Please pay attention, all of you. My question is this. This is my laptop. In my laptop, I am afraid that, okay, viruses or other bad programs may attack my system. I want that viruses, worms, or other bad programs, they should not come in my system. So what I do? I install a security mechanism. I install an antivirus in my laptop. I want that hackers should not be able to, access my laptop. So I install a firewall in my laptop. Here, I want to ensure security of my data. I want that no one should be able to read the data except the client and server. So can you suggest what can I do with this data? How can I secure this data? Anyone? Okay, so Safa has an answer, Safa Al-Siabi. Safa thinks that if we encrypt this data, only the sender and receiver will know what the data is, but the attacker will not be able to read or access or understand the data. Do you agree with Safa? If you agree with Safa, write a yes. Okay, Nasreen and Raja agree. So yes, that is correct. So very good, Safa, Nasreen and Raja and everyone. Please pay attention. Students, what is confidentiality? Confidentiality is a goal of information security. How do we achieve this goal? We achieve this goal with the help of encryption. When we encrypt our data, basically what we achieve is confidentiality. Because when we encrypt our data, we make sure that only the authorized people are able to decrypt the data, read the data, understand the data. When we encrypt our data, we make sure that an unauthorized person is not able to read or understand the data. Is it clear to all of you? Do you all understand this? This is the principle of confidentiality, and this is how we achieve it. So good, very nice. It seems all of you have understood this. Excellent. So please pay close attention. This is confidentiality and we have understood it. We'll actually talk again about it now. But before coming back to it, we will move on to the next principle of security, which is integrity. Right? Before we study integrity, you have to remember what is confidentiality. Confidentiality says that only the authorized people should be able to see or access or read or understand the data. Now we move on to the next principle, which is integrity. So students, please pay close attention. We again have this client and we have this Bank Muscat server. We have a sender and we have a receiver. Now students, carefully listen. The sender performs this online transaction. He says that transfer 100 Omani Riyals from my account to some other account. And we have an attacker here. Okay. What is integrity? The principle of integrity says that only the authorized people, integrity requires that only the authorized people should be able to change, or in other words, modify. It means the same thing. Integrity says, integrity requires that only the authorized people, only the authorized entities should be able to change or modify the data. In other words, integrity requires that an unauthorized person should not be able to change or modify our data. So before this example, I'll come back to the mobile phone example. This is my mobile phone and I have a lot of data in this mobile phone. For example, in this mobile phone, I have an Excel sheet in which I have, your grades, right? So how much marks, every student has got in this class. I have all those marks in a grade sheet, in an Excel grade sheet in my mobile phone. If I want to make any changes to these grades, right? If I want to add any grade, if I want to remove, if I want to make any changes, I am the only authorized person who should be able to make any changes to the grades in the sheet which is in this mobile phone. No one else among you or no one else in the whole world should be able to modify this. So if this mobile phone is secure enough, it is secured in a way that it allows only the authorized person to make modifications or changes to the data, we will say that this mobile phone good integrity is ensured in this mobile phone. But if there are weaknesses in the security of this mobile phone and an unauthorized person is able to access this mobile phone, he can delete some data, modify some data, change your grades, he can make such changes, we will say that this mobile phone, good integrity is not ensured in this mobile phone. So what is integrity? Integrity requires that only the authorized people, only the authorized entities should be able to change or modify the data. In other words, integrity requires that an unauthorized person should not be able to change or modify this data. Is it clear to all of you? So in other words, listen carefully. Listen carefully. Let us say our system is designed and our system is secured in a way that this attacker wants to make a change to this transaction, but he fails. There is no way for any attacker to make any kind of changes to our data. Then we will say that this system ensures good integrity. Good integrity is ensured in this system. But if there are weaknesses in our system which allow an attacker to make changes to our data, for example, this attacker is able to change this 100 Riyal into 5,000 Omani Riyal, and he changes the account number of the other person with his own account number. If the attacker, an unauthorized person, is able to make changes in our system, then we will say that this system does not have any integrity. So students, please pay attention. If an attacker is able to make a modification, an unauthorized modification to the data, we will say our integrity is compromised. Compromise means gone. In our system, if there is a weakness which allows an attacker to make unauthorized changes to our data, then we will say that there is no integrity in our system. Our integrity is compromised. So have all of you understood integrity and confidentiality? Once again, let me reiterate. Confidentiality says it requires that only the authorized people should be able to see or know or read the data. An unauthorized person should not be able to see the data. He should not be able to read the data. He should not know what the data actually is. While integrity requires that only the authorized people should be able to make modifications to this data. In other words, integrity requires an unauthorized person should not be able to make any changes to this data. Do you understand the difference between confidentiality and integrity? If you understand this clearly, please respond with a yes in the chat box. And if you have a question, any problem, please write your question there, or you can enable your microphone and directly speak. At any point in time in the class, you are allowed to enable your microphone and ask any question. No problem. All right, so everyone is claiming that they have understood confidentiality and integrity. If you have understood, then I have a big question. Listen very, very carefully, all of you. Please pay very good attention. My question is this. There is an attacker. This attacker, let us say our system is designed in a very good way. Our communication system is very good, right? So it is secured in a good way. Our attacker, he cannot see our data. It is not possible for him to see our data, so he cannot compromise confidentiality. The system ensures very good confidentiality, so it is not possible for the attacker to see our data. In such cases where an attacker cannot see or read or access our data, is it possible that an attacker who cannot see our data, but he is still able to modify our data? In other words, my question is, can someone not compromise confidentiality and still compromise integrity? In other words, is it possible that an attacker, there is an attacker who, okay, mobile phone example. Is it possible that an attacker cannot access or see any data which is saved in my mobile phone, but still he can modify the data in my mobile phone? Is it logically possible? Can you modify something without seeing something? Okay, so everyone thinks no, but we have Safa and Maria. They think yes. So Safa. Oh, and Takia also think that yes. So I want, actually you're right. The right answer is yes. It is possible that an attacker, without compromising confidentiality, he compromises the integrity. It is very much possible. So my question is, can anyone here give me any example of a scenario where our data is modified, but the attacker is able to modify our data, but he is not able to see or read our data? How is this possible? So Takia, Safa, or anyone else who thinks this is possible, try to come up with an example. I'll give you some time to think. Yes, so anyone? No one? All right, so students, let me give you an example. Student, this is my computer, and in my computer I have some data. right? Have you heard about what is a computer virus? Do you all know what is a virus? Okay, a virus is a bad program. Right? It is a malicious software. It's a bad program. What it does, a virus, when it comes in your system, it modifies or changes your data. A virus deletes your data. It locks your system. Very good. It can insert new record. It can corrupt your data. Excellent examples in the chat box. So a virus can do a lot of bad things. But a virus does not steal your data, right? A virus does a lot of bad things, but a virus does not steal your data. Who designs a virus? The virus is designed by an attacker. So this is the attacker. He designed this virus and that virus came to the system. Now this virus, student, will not steal the data and send it to the attacker. Viruses don't do that. There are other bad programs called Trojan horses or rootkits. They do that. Trojan horses and rootkits, they steal the data and send it to the attacker. But viruses, by definition, they do not steal your data. Viruses only modify or change your data. In other words, viruses, they cannot compromise confidentiality. Viruses do not steal your data and send it to the attacker, by definition. Viruses, however, corrupt your data, modify your data, delete your data, they will insert new records, they will make all kinds of changes in your system. So you see, from this example, what I'm trying to tell you is this, that it is very much possible that an attacker may not be able to read our data, but he may still be able to modify our data. Is it clear? The attacker, our data is transmitting over this channel in the form of packets, right? These packets are encrypted, so the attacker cannot read this data. But what an attacker can do is he can delete one packet from here and he can insert a new packet in the stream. So what will happen? Confidentiality is not compromised. Why? Because the attacker has not been able to read the data, but our integrity is compromised. How? Because attacker has changed the message. Do you understand this? That in any attack, student, the attacker may compromise confidentiality, he may compromise integrity, he may compromise confidentiality but not integrity, or may compromise integrity but not confidentiality, or he may compromise both. Do you understand this? If you understand what we have discussed, please respond with a yes. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Now students, please pay attention. Something very, very important. I told you earlier that the biggest, the prime, the actual, the real responsibility of cryptography is only to achieve confidentiality. The purpose of cryptography is to make sure that only the authorized people should be able to read or access or understand the data. The purpose of confidentiality is, the purpose of cryptography is, the major goal that cryptography wants to achieve is confidentiality, right? But there are some additional cryptographic mechanisms. For example, we will learn two very important mechanisms in this course. One is called digital signatures. This is a cryptographic mechanism. We will learn this very well, inshallah. And there is another mechanism called MAC, right? So these two mechanisms, either MAC or digital signature, we can use them, and these two help us in achieving integrity. Any one of them can be used, and then we will also be able to achieve integrity of our data. Do you understand this? Right? So please pay attention. How confidentiality is achieved using encryption? Confidentiality is achieved using encryption. When we encrypt our data, an unauthorized person cannot see or read or access our data. Only we can see or read or understand our data. When we encrypt our data, even if an attacker gets this data, he will not be able to understand anything. But talking about integrity, please understand that to achieve integrity, we use either MAC or we use digital signatures. And using MAC or digital signature, we will make sure that no one is able to make modifications to our data. If this is clear, we will move on to the next topic. Is it very clear to all of you? Okay, Alhamdulillah. So we will move on now to the next topic. All right, students, the next goal of cryptography is authentication. And students, there are two types of authentication. One is called data origin authentication. And second is called entity authentication. And students, another name for entity authentication is identification. So we already understand confidentiality and integrity, and now we are going to understand what is authentication and what are the two types of authentication. Students, let us first talk about data origin authentication. Right. Carefully see this example. Students, we have a sender and we have a, let us give the sender a name. So we have a sender named Alice, as we discussed. Alice is always the sender. And we have Bob. Alice is the sender, Bob is the receiver. And we have this attacker. The name of this attacker, as we discussed in the last class, is Eve. Students, what attackers can sometimes do is this. Let me just move the. Okay, so please pay attention, students, all of you. Carefully see. We have Alice and Bob. These are sender and receiver, and we have this attacker, Eve. What attackers can sometimes do is, attackers can create a new message. And in this new message, they will, instead of attaching their identity, they will attach the identity of someone else. So for example, this attacker creates this new message, and he writes the email address of Alice, the source IP address of Alice. He attaches the identity of Alice with this message, and he sends this message to Bob. Now students, when Bob receives this message, Bob, if he simply accepts this message, Bob says, okay, very nice, this message is coming from Alice. This message is actually coming from attacker, but Bob believes that this message is actually coming from Alice. We will say authentication has failed. This system does not perform good authentication. There is no authentication in this system. So if the attacker creates a message like this, with which he attaches the identity of someone else, he writes here the IP address of Alice, he writes here the name and email address of Alice, everything of Alice. What will happen when he sends this message to Bob? If Bob does not check, if Bob does not confirm whether this message is really coming from Alice, what will happen? If Bob will simply accept this message and believe that it is coming from Alice, we will say authentication has failed. But if this system ensures good authentication, what Bob will do, Bob, when he receives this packet, Bob will see whether this data that I am receiving, whether this message or whether this data I am receiving, is it really coming from Alice? And when Bob checks and he sees that, okay, this data is not coming from Alice, maybe it is coming from some attacker. If Bob is able to find this, then we will say our authentication is successful. So what is authentication? Authentication, student, is the process of checking. It is the process of verifying. It is the process of confirming that whether your data is really coming from the right source. So the data says I'm coming from Alice. Whether the data is really coming from Alice or some attacker has sent this data, trying to make you believe that it is coming from Alice. So what is data origin authentication? What do you mean by the word origin? Origin means source. Data origin authentication means checking or verifying whether this data that I have received, is it really coming from the right source or someone else has sent this data to me? Do you understand this, students? Have you understood data origin authentication? It is the process of checking, it is the process of confirming, it is the process of verifying that the data, the message, the packet which I have received, whether it is really coming from the right person or this data has been sent by someone else. Okay, so it's clear, Alhamdulillah. If it is not clear to someone, you can still ask. All right, so it means that we understand what is data origin authentication. I'll give you another example, student. Student, have you heard about the term email spoofing? What is email spoofing? Right? Email spoofing is an attack, student. And in this attack, what attackers basically do is this. Right? Let us say I am the attacker. So there are two people here. One is Zad and one is Saeed. Let us say Saeed and Zad are very good friends. So what I do is, as an attacker, I create an email. So I write the source email, I mean the destination, I am sending an email to Zad, but I want to make Zad believe that this email is coming from Saeed, whether it is actually sent by the attacker. So what I do is, I create an email and I write destination email address as Zad's email address, and instead of writing my own source email address, I write the source email address of Saeed, and I send a bad email to Zad. So Zad will think that this email is coming from Saeed, where this email is actually coming from an attacker. So students, this is called email spoofing, and this is something very easy to do, right? What attackers can do is, they can create messages, they can create, messages, and they send you these messages, and you believe that these messages are coming from the right person, whether these messages are actually coming from someone else. This is, if you are able to identify that, yes, this message or this email or this phone call that I am receiving, it is not from Alice, it is from someone else, then your data origin authentication is successful. But if you believe that, yes, this message is really coming from Alice, then your data origin authentication has failed. I will give you another example. I'm very sure that all of you have received some phone call from Omantel or Ooredoo or Bank Muscat, right? So I'll give you that example, that I received a phone call, right, from Bank Muscat. Right? So the guy called me and he said, okay, Mr. Muhammad Tariq. I said, yes, I'm Muhammad Tariq. He said, Mr. Muhammad Tariq, you have an account in Bank Muscat, so you have won some 10,000 Omani Riyals. So congratulations. I said, thank you very much. So give me 10,000 Omani Riyals. He said, yes, but before we give you your 10,000 Omani Riyals, tell me your civil ID number, your passport number, your this number, that number, bank account number, CVV number, many things. I knew that he was a cheat guy. I was just playing with him. But what I did was, when I received that call, I immediately knew that this is not Bank Muscat. Bank Muscat doesn't call people like that, right? That you have won this prize and give me your account number and all that. So I knew. So when I checked, when I verified whether this phone call I am receiving, is it really coming from Bank Muscat or is it some attacker who is calling me like this? So I tested and I verified that this is an attacker. I did not accept his message. I threw his message away. I did not accept what he was saying. I did not give him any information. So what I did was, I performed data origin authentication, and my data origin authentication was successful. If I had believed that, yes, this call is really coming from Bank Muscat, and if I will give my passport number and civil ID number and many other things, then my data origin authentication has failed. Do you understand data origin authentication clearly? Data origin authentication means that as a receiver, if you receive a message, when you verify and you check, you confirm whether this message is really coming from the right person or is it coming from an attacker. If you are able to correctly identify that yes, this message is coming from right person and this message is coming from wrong person, if you have a system which helps you in correctly identifying this, it means your data origin authentication will be successful. So it appears that this is very clear to all of you. So then we will move on to the next type of authentication, which is called entity authentication. So please pay attention. I will give you an example for entity authentication first. Okay, so students, there's a problem. Like when I was new in Misbah College of Technology, one day I was entering the college and there was a guard at the college gate. So the guard stopped me. He said, "Yes, mister, who are you?" I said, "I am Muhammad Tariq and I am a lecturer in Misbah College of Technology in the IT department." He said, no, I have been the guard here for 10 years. I have never seen you. I said, no, I am really a lecturer in the IT department. Now I have a problem. The problem is that I am trying to tell the guard that I am really Mr. Muhammad Tariq and I am a lecturer in Misbah College of Technology. But the guard is not trusting me. He is trying to authenticate me. He is trying to confirm whether I really am the right person. But he is not trusting me and I have no way of telling him, no way of confirming him. Can you give me some example? How can I prove to that guard that I am really Mr. Muhammad Tariq and I am a lecturer in the IT department of NCT? Is there a way I can help him successfully authenticate me? So write your answers in the chat box. How can I help the guard in authenticating me? How can I give some information? Okay, so there is an answer. I want to know the name also. So who is speaking? Student, please tell me your name.
Moza.
Okay, Moza. Yes, so same answer by Zad and Moza is giving the same answer. So good answer, right? What the guard is trying to do, guard is trying to check whether it is really the right person who he is claiming to be. So when I give my college ID card to that guard, the guard will check, that yes, photo matches, the name matches, the card is fine, everything is fine. He will say, yes, sorry, Mr. Tariq, you can go inside. You understand this? So student, what is entity authentication? Entity authentication is the process of uniquely identifying an entity. It is a process of checking, verifying, confirming whether this is really the right person who I am talking with or not. So carefully listen, right? I received a phone call from Bank Muscat, the same example, right? So Bank Muscat guy, he is saying that I am calling from Bank Muscat. Now I should check, I should confirm. If I am able to identify that, yes, this guy is not calling from Bank Muscat, he is a cheat, right? So in that case, entity authentication will be successful, otherwise it will fail. So there is a very small difference between these two types of authentication. We have to understand it clearly. Please pay attention. Please pay attention. I will give you another example. So here is Alice and Bob. Let us say Alice and Bob they are friends and they are communicating with each other. They are business partners and they are having a business talk. Entity authentication means that Bob is really sure that he is talking only to Alice and no one else. Entity authentication or identification means that you get really assured that I am talking to the right person. I'm not talking to an attacker. This is entity authentication. And what is data origin authentication? Data origin authentication example is this, right? Data origin authentication means that all the data I am receiving is really coming from the right person. For example, what this attacker can do, he can create a message and he can write here that this message is from Alice and he can send this message to Bob. So data origin authentication is the process of checking whether this data is really coming from the right person who I am talking to, or some attacker has sent me this data. Data origin authentication is the process of checking the data, confirming that this data is really coming from the right source. Whereas entity authentication is the process of verifying whether I am talking really to the right person or some attacker is sitting here. Do you understand the difference, students? Do you understand this difference? Okay, so carefully see. For example, there is this real person, Alice, right? Let us say my entity authentication is successful. This is me, I am Bob. So my entity authentication is successful. I am 100% sure that I am talking to Alice, right? But what happens is Alice sends this message to Bob, and what this attacker does, attacker deletes this message and he creates this new message and sends this message to Bob. Now Bob is talking to Alice. If Bob accepts this message and he says that yes, this message is really coming from Alice, I am talking to Alice, in that case our entity authentication is successful. We know we are talking to Alice, but our data authentication is failed because we have accepted a packet which actually came from the attacker, but we believed it came from Alice. Okay, so I hope this is clear. All of you are saying understood, clear, very good. So there is no in this. Excellent. Is there anyone in this class who can explain the difference between data origin authentication and entity authentication once again, but in Arabic? I really like Arabic. I want to learn Arabic. So when you explain in Arabic, maybe I will learn a word or two also. So is there anyone in this class who can explain to us what is the difference between data origin authentication and entity authentication? Yes, please proceed. What is your name, student?
Okay.
Yes, Takiya. Yes, Takiya. Please continue.
In Arabic?
Yeah, in Arabic.
أوكي السلام عليكم. أنا
وعليكم
بشرح
السلام.
لكم الفرق بين هذه الداتا الأولية والثانية. الأولية تراها يوم يكون هناك مرسل ومستقبل. الأولى يكون أنه يوم يكون المرسل يعني يتدخل في الهكر. فالأولى تشوف أنه لازم تتأكد من الرسالة أن المرسل هي الهكر ولا المرسل هي الشخص المرسل. وفي الثانية إنه يكون لازم إنه ممكن إن الهكر إيش يسوي؟ يستقبل الرسالة ويغيرها، فيرسلها يعني يستقبل الرسالة ويغيرها ويرسلها الهكر مرة ثانية للمرسل، مثل ما قال المستر إنه معنا أليس وبوب. في الداتا أوريجينال إنه يمكن إنه شوف أليس ترسل رسالة والهكر يغيرها، فهو لازم يتأكد أن الرسالة من أليس أم من الهكر. وفي الثانية أن في أثناء المحادثة والمراسلات يمكن هو يستقبل رسالة ويغيرها. هذه اللي فهمته.
All right. Takiya, thank you very much. That was excellent. Very nice. So students, is the difference between data origin authentication and entity authentication very, very clear to you? If you have any question, any problem, please ask. Okay, it seems there is no question. So once again, thank you, Takiya. That was very nice. So we will now proceed. So students, the question is, how do we achieve confidentiality? We achieve confidentiality by encrypting our data. When we encrypt our data, we ensure that only the authorized people, only us, only, I mean, whoever encrypts should be able to see, access, read, or understand the data. How do we achieve integrity? We achieve integrity with the help of MAC and digital signature. When you use any one of these mechanisms, we will study them in detail, you will learn that no one will be able to modify our data. How? We will see this. This MAC plus digital signature, they not only helps us in achieving integrity, same mechanism also help us in achieving authentication. So when we use digital signature or MAC, we can ensure data origin authentication and entity authentication both. So we can achieve authentication with the help of MAC plus digital signatures. So I hope this is clear to you. And with this, we move on to the last goal of security for today, which is non-repudiation. Okay, so students, I have a question. First, make sure you pronounce this word, say it again. It is non-repudiation. Remember, if you are an information security student, especially these terms are your bread and butter, right? So even in advanced courses you are going to take in advanced diploma and BTech, this is going to come again and again. Even in this very course, you will see that how we achieve different things with the help of different things. We are going to be continuously talking about that. So from interview perspective, it is very important that you pronounce these words correctly. So say it a few times. This word is confidentiality. This is confidentiality. This is integrity. We have authentication and non-repudiation. The word is non-repudiation. So it's a good idea to say it a few times. Non-repudiation. Okay, so for understanding non-repudiation, I will first give you an example. So listen to the example carefully. Students, in my account in Bank Muscat, let us say there are 2000 reals. Right? So I have 2000 reals in my Bank Muscat account. I go to the bank and I take all that money and I come home. And the next day, I go to the bank again. Can I go there again and say that, oh, where are my 2000 reals? My 2000 reals are missing. I have not taken it. So they will check their system. Bank will check their system. They will say, Mr. Tariq, you came yesterday. You have taken this money yesterday. And I say, no, I don't trust it. You have removed 2000 reals from my account. So put back 2000 reals. Can I do that, students? Right? If you perform a transaction with a bank, can you go to the bank next day and can you fight that, oh, where is my money gone? I have not performed any transaction. So is it possible that you perform a transaction and you refuse later, that you say, no, I have not done this? Is it possible? Can you cheat a bank like this? No, it is not possible. Good, very nice. So student, this is the same idea of non-repudiation. The idea of non-repudiation is this, that if a person performs a transaction, if a person or an entity, if he performs a transaction, if he performs an action, he should not be able to refuse. He should not be able to deny that, no, I have not performed this transaction. So what I'm saying is basically this. This is a client and this is, let us say, the Bank Muscat server. This client performs an online transaction, right? He says that, okay, he takes out, let us say, 2000 Omani Riyal. He transferred 2000 Riyal to some other account, right? Can he refuse? Can he deny later that, no, I have not transferred 2000 Riyal anywhere? Put 2000 Riyal back in my account. Can he refuse that? The answer is no. He cannot refuse this. Why? He cannot refuse or he cannot deny that he has performed this transaction because the receiver is having some proof. He is having some very strong evidence that this transaction is really performed by this client. Is it clear? So this is the idea of non-repudiation. Non-repudiation is another principle of security. Cryptography helps us in achieving this principle. It helps us in achieving this goal of security. So non-repudiation says that if a person has performed an action, the idea of non-repudiation is that if I have performed an action, if I have generated some data, if I have executed a transaction, right? If I have, sent a message, I should not be able to refuse or I should not be able to deny later that, no, I have not sent this message. Maybe someone else did this transaction, right? So if I have sent an email, the receiver should have a proof that this email is really coming from Mr. Tariq. Mr. Tariq should not be able to refuse. He should not be able to say, no, I have not sent this email. If Mr. Tariq has performed a transaction with the bank, he should not be able to deny later that, no, I have not performed this transaction. Maybe someone else has done it. Do you understand, students? So the idea of non-repudiation is that if a client, if a sender, right, has performed a transaction, he has performed an action, he has generated some data, he has sent some message, he should not be able to refuse he should not be able to deny later, then no, he should not be able to say that I have not sent this, I have not done this, maybe someone else has done this. This is the idea of non-repudiation. So students, cryptography also helps us in achieving non-repudiation. How? Again, using these two mechanisms of MAC and digital signature. So listen very, very carefully. The primary, the basic, the most important responsibility of cryptography is to achieve confidentiality. The real reason cryptography exists is this. The real purpose of cryptography is to make sure that no one, an unauthorized person, should not be able to see or access or read or understand the data. How do we make sure that no one is able to see, access, read, or understand the data? We encrypt the data. When we encrypt the data, no unauthorized person will be able to read or access or understand that data. So cryptography, the primary goal of cryptography is to achieve confidentiality. Now, apart from confidentiality, some modern forms of cryptography, some modern cryptographic mechanisms like MAC and digital signature. Encryption is a very old concept. Even thousands of years ago, people were encrypting data. I have given you different examples in the last class, right? We will talk about more examples in handout number 2. Thousands of years ago, encryption was taking place. People were encrypting their messages. That these are very new concepts, MAC and digital signature. These two forms of cryptography, these two cryptographic mechanisms help us in achieving integrity, authentication, and non-repudiation. What I mean to say is that when you use MAC or when you use digital signature, you make sure that an attacker is not able to modify your data. You make sure that data is really coming from the right person. You make sure that the person you are talking to is really the right person. And you make sure that if someone performs an action, if someone performs a transaction, someone sends a message, he should not be able to refuse, that he should not be able to deny, he should not be able to say that no, I have not sent this message. So student, these are 4 goals of information security. Cryptography helps us in achieving these 4 goals of security. The primary goal is this, but some modern forms of cryptography also help us in achieving this. So we will learn all these mechanisms plus a lot of other things in this course, and we will see how MAC and digital signature achieve all this. So it will be very interesting, and hope you will enjoy this. Students, today's lecture is complete. I think this is sufficient for today. If you have any question, you can ask right now. So do you have any question, any problem? No. All right, then. So thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next class, inshallah. Take care, and thank you very much. Take care, all of you, and bye-bye.